Now it's time to make our hands dirty. So to do all the experimentations on various Kubernetes objects, we require a cluster, a Kubernetes cluster. So that's what we are gonna do here. So we are gonna create a Kubernetes cluster using kops and Amazon Web Services. So how do we do it? So to create a Kubernetes cluster, the first step is we need a domain for Kubernetes DNS records. So I have my domain imlike.com from GoDaddy. So you also have to create your own. Then once that is done, we have to create a Linux virtual machine and setup. So here I'm going to use EC2 instance, and inside that EC2 instance we have to install kops, kubectl, SSH keys and AWS CLI. Then we have to log into that AWS account and we have to set up S3 bucket. I am user for AWS CLI Route 53 hosted zone. S3 bucket is to store the state of the objects. Then final step, log into domain registrar to cross check. And once we log into the domain registrar, you have to create NS records for subdomain pointing to Route 53 hosted zone NS servers. So naming servers basically. So naming this NS servers should be a Route 53 hosted zone NS server should be connected with the NS records of the subdomain so that the EC2 instances which are part of the AWS can be put into the domain of subdomain of GoDaddy so that we can access these EC2 instances through the domain names using naming server. So let me put these activities into our sticky note, and this is Kubernetes in action. So the first exercise in this is to create a Kubernetes cluster using kops. So first what we are going to do is we will open GoDaddy and we will create our domain. Then as usual, AWS EC2 instance T2 medium. I'm gonna go with T2 medium, and once that is done, we will also create S3 bucket. I am user and Route 53 hosted zone. And once this is done, so we will log into our domain registrar, that's a GoDaddy, and then we will point out the Route 53, or simple way we'll make connection between Route 53 hosted zone NS servers and GoDaddy or our domain. Okay, connection. Okay, so these are all steps for now. Then we will proceed further. Once these are all done, we will proceed further. So for that, first we will get into our GoDaddy account if you have one, or else you have to create one account. So let me get into this. This is my AWS instance, and first let me log into GoDaddy. Login. If you do not have, you have to sign up. If you have an account, you can sign in. So I have my account, I have signed in. So now here type the domain you want. So I have my domain imlike.com. If you want to create a new domain like cherry tails, this could be the start of something. So you can find out some cherrytails.com, cherrytails.in. So a lot of .co.in, .co.tv, .shop, .club. So a lot of domains are given. So this is exact match. So if you want to buy it, you have to click it, make it yours. Then you have to continue to the cart, and then you have to pay money. It's 139 rupees for the first year with a 3-year registration. Okay. However, I have my domain, so I'm not going to go with that. So I will use my domain itself. Okay. You have to create your own domain if you do not have. So my domain is imlike.com, because my domain belongs to machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that's the reason I've taken MLAI, MLAI. Okay. So let me click OK. And these are all some other, this domain taken, this imlike.com, that's mine itself. But now the charge is, now it's pretty costly. It's 5,249 rupees. We might be able to help you get it. See how. Let me click how to get it. So here is how this works. You get a dedicated domain broker. When you purchase the service, a dedicated broker will help you formulate a strategy and budget to try to acquire your domain. So basically I have taken this domain now. So if somebody wants a similar kind of domain, so some dedicated domain broker will be allocated this work. So he will set up that meeting with the other person who is basically having this domain. So he will talk to the both, and he will create and he will come up with the final solution, and somehow you'll get it. The domain broker works the deal for you, and the domain is securely transferred to your account. That's how it works. If somebody wants my domain, so you have to just ask for add to cart, and so the domain broker will speak to me, and then if a deal is struck between me and domain broker, and domain broker will pay that money to me, and then it will securely transferred. The domain will be securely transferred to the new person, whoever wants that. However, this is my domain. Now it's costing 5,249 rupees, but before I purchased it at 139 rupees. That's fine. Okay. So now let me get back. So yeah, go back to the work. Yeah. So here you can see this is mine. So just click my products, and here you could see account alert, keep you up to date, add SMS alerts. That's fine. Okay, this is my domain. So I have my domain, so I don't need to create. If you do not have, kindly create your domain. So if I click on DNS, I have some existing naming servers. I'll delete all this. TTL, okay. So I have some existing naming servers, and Okay, this 6 DNS records has been deleted, and I'll delete these also, so that when we are working on this, it would be pretty clear for you, or else you will get confused. So that's the reason I'm deleting the existing yeah, 5 new DNS records also has been deleted. So yeah, now I do not have any uh, yes, any DNS domain naming system records. Okay, nice. Yeah, DNS records. So these are all default one. Let's keep it. Okay, you've seen my DNS, and you should also get similar page for your domain if you have created, and you can click on manage to get into more information about your domain. So okay, just come here. This is all about your domain, forward domain, manage DNS, and if you click here and here, you will have your emails with imlike.com with your domain name. I think it's pretty clear now. So I hope you also created a domain name with this account. So let me mark up this. So the first one, let's open GoDaddy and create our domain. So the domain name should be remembered. It's imlike.com. So let me copy this and keep it in sticky note. This is what my domain is. Okay. So now what's the next step? It's time to create our EC2 instance. Now let's log into our AWS account, and we'll create an EC2 instance. So this is our AWS EC2 AWS account, and this is our AWS console. And if you do not have AWS account, kindly create AWS account and then join with me in this session. So I will click on EC2 instance service. So this is Tokyo. I'm gonna go with US East 1, East 2, Ohio, and West 1, West 2. I'm gonna go with US West 2, that is Oregon. Yeah, here I'm gonna launch my EC2 instance. So just note down here, it's US West 2, that's Oregon. That's the region, and this is kops. The name of the instance I'm gonna give is kops. That's a KOPS, kops. I'll go with Ubuntu 20.4, 20.04, and here I'm gonna give T2 medium, T2 medium. Then key pair, I'll create a new key pair. So I'll say kops key. Yeah. Then network setting, I will go with the simple network settings, only SSH, nothing much. Kops SG and kops SG. So this one, my IP, and rest all remains same. So let me launch this EC2 instance. By the time I'm gonna take, okay. So EC2 instance successfully initiated, successfully it's been initiated. So now let me go to the downloads and take this kops.key and let me put it into create cluster. So this is where I'm going to put my kops.key.pm. So that's it. Let us check. By the time it gets and it's up and running, we will do other tasks. So this is done. The first step is done. Second step, AWS EC2 instance creation is also done. That to T2 medium. So now we are gonna create S3 bucket first and IAM user, then route 53 hosted zones. Okay. So let me, yeah, I'm here only. So now S3 bucket. Next one is S3 bucket scalable storage in the cloud. Let me click on S3 bucket service in AWS services. Now you can see that Amazon S3 store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. If you want to go through this, you can go through it so that you'll get a clear cut understanding of what is S3 bucket. But for now, we will create our bucket. So name of the bucket I'm gonna give is V profile Charan kops state, because this is we profile this bucket where we will be using it to store the state of each object. So that's the reason the name we gave as a v profile Charan kops state. Okay, so we have created S3 bucket and we'll put it in US West, Oregon West, US West 2. Fantastic. You don't need to touch it. Region is also fine. And rest all you can keep it same or default settings. You don't need to attach anything else. Rest all will go with the default settings. Okay. Rest all fine. Let me create a bucket. So name of the bucket and region of the bucket are important for us. So now successfully created bucket. Bucket name is this v profile Charan cop state. Let me copy this. No, just name. I just want to copy this bucket. So put it in here. Yeah, this is our bucket name S3. Next, S3 bucket is done. Now it's time to create IAM user. So let me go to IAM services. Why do we require IAM user? So we want to access AWS, our AWS account from some other instance, some other machine. But how can you do that? So the only option is you have to create an user and then you have to give access to that user, and the security key, the access key should be stored in a machine from where you want to access this through AWS CLI. For that, you need to install AWS CLI in another machine, and there you have to provide the security keys of this user, so that from that, as a user, through your AWS CLI, you can access your Amazon Web Services account from a third machine or third party machine, or the machine which is not directly connected with the AWS. Okay, so now let's create a user. Let me click on users first. So we have IT admin, Terra admin. So now we are going to create a new user named cop, a kops admin. So the name I'm going to give is kops admin, KOPS Let me make it small. Kops admin is the name. So enable console access optional. That's not console access is not for programmatic access. You can generate access keys after you create the user. So let me click next. Let me click attach policies directly, and what policy I'm gonna give is administrator access. So AWS access type programmatic access, and then permissions I'm gonna give administrator access. Rest all fine. Permissions boundary is not set. We'll keep it same optional. Then we'll go one step ahead. And now you can see review and create administrator access tag is not required because we have attached a kops admin. Now let's create a user. So now it's creating a user. User has been created successfully. You can view and download user's password and email instructions for signing into the AWS management console. So let me either click here view user, or else we can click there. Yeah. So now here we can find out a security credentials. Okay. Let's enable console access, or else we'll directly create create an access key. So access key best practice, that's okay. Let us directly create a CLI, command line interface access. Okay. And click next and check I understand the above recommendation and want to proceed to create an access key. So key, the name I'm going to give is kops admin access, and create access key. So it's been created, and here is that, and you can download the .csv file from here. So cut and paste it in your directory. This is your file kops admin, and here you can see your access key and secret access key. So never access key and secret key. So never ever reveal this access key ID and secret access key to anybody. This is very secure and you have to keep it safe. I'm gonna delete this user from this, so that's the reason I'm basically showing it to you. However, I don't encourage you to share this with anybody, even with your friends. So now so the second activity is also done successfully. So now, so S3 bucket is done and IAM user is also done. So, and now the name of the is kops admin is the name of the user, IAM user. Now it's time to create route 53 hosted zone. Route 53 hosted zone. So for that, I will again route 53. Yeah, we can see that service route 53 hosted zone. Yes. Now we are gonna create hosted zone, and let me click on create hosted zone. So the domain name, this is the name of the domain that you want to route traffic for. So I'm gonna give cube vpro.imlaic.com. Yes. So that's what, and it's a public hosted zone. And I'll give the same description. This is hosted zone for cube cluster. Rest all remains same. I'm not touching anything. So let's create a hosted zone now. So the hosted zone has been created. Let me close this. So 0 records. Cube Wipro, sorry, spelling is wrong. Let me delete this zone and create new zone. Create a hosted zone. This time at least I have to give proper one. Cube Wipro dot imlaic.com. Rest all hosted zone for cube cluster. Create this hosted zone now. Yes, cubewebpromlac.com. Everything is fine. So here you can click for the hosted zone details, and these are 4 naming servers. These are 4 name servers that we have, and here you can see that. cubewebpromlac.com. This is a routing, and these are the 4 naming server, and this is SOA, and this is simple one, like basically, and here this is not the naming server. Okay, so this is also done. So name of this hosted zone is cube vpro imlaic dot com. Okay, now it's time to make a connection between route 53 hosted zone name servers and domain. So for that, what we have to do is we have to copy this. I'll copy all these 4, yeah, and I'll put it in our, yeah, here is fine. Yes. So now let's get back to our GoDaddy. Yeah, here it is. And yeah, this is my DNS. And let me click on DNS, or yeah, now you can see our DNS records. In this, I'm gonna add a new DNS record, domain naming state, domain naming server record. So choose an account. So I'm gonna go with NS, and this one I'm gonna exactly name, I will give cube wipro, and here the first one DNS, let me get here the first, yeah, NS1, then TTL, I'm go with the default, I'm not gonna touch that. Okay, and so let's add this, let's add this record, update a DNS record imlaic.com success. So you should find this here. So NS, yeah, NS cube wipro, fine. So now let's add one more record, again NS name, yeah, and it's the second one, default. I'll go with the default. Done. Next we will attach a third record. NS cube Wipro and default is absolutely fine. Let me done. And the final record of naming servers NS and cube Wipro and paste the final naming server record. And TTL is default. And let's add record. That's it. All records has been added, and you can see that these are the 4 records has been attached. So now let's get into our sticky note. So the connection between Route 53 host John and NS server domains, Route 53 host John, NS servers and domain has been established. So now let's get into our hosted John and refresh it. Yeah. So far we have done with domain, the first step, and the third step, and the fourth step. Now it's time to do this installation of kops, kubectl, SSH keys, and AWS. These are the steps left. Let's do that. So for that, the steps follow like this. Let me go back to the AWS EC2 instance step. So here I'm gonna do. So first, once we log into the EC2 instance, then SSH keygen, we will generate that. Then we will install AWS CLI, then AWS configure, then once AWS configuration is done, then we will install kubectl and install kops. Once installation of all are done, then we will verify the domain and we'll create our cluster. That's it. Once all are done, next the fifth step is to create a cluster and verify our domain. That's it. Okay, let's begin our installations. Let's begin with SSH key gen. Now, but before that, we have to log into our system. Let's get into our AWS and then we'll see what's the condition of EC2 instance. So EC2, I should be in US West 2 region, Oregon. Yeah, it's a Tokyo. Let me change to US West 2. That's Oregon. Yes, here one instance is up and running. So let me click on that instance and click on connect and copy the SSH command and get into my directory where kops key is there and open a git bash there and then paste the command there and enter. So yep, we have successfully logged into the system. Now let's begin our activities. Okay, now pwd, yeah, it's a root directory, so snap. Other than that, nothing else. So here I am going to create my SSH keygen, SSH keygen, and execute. So generating public private RSA key pair, it's asking the file name. I will give kops SSH. So enter passphrase. I will give okay. That's it. Our SSH key has been generated, and this is the random art image that you can see here. And let me show you that. ls, you see that kops SSH, and then kops SSH.pub. This is our public key, and this is our private key. That's it. So now let's begin our installations one by one. The first installation we are going to do is AWS CLI sudo apt update. Okay, you can see that US West 2, this instance belongs to. Yeah, all done. So now it's time to give, say, apt install AWS CLI option Y. So the installation process has been started and it's being installed. It's unpacking the package. So 95% is done. Let's wait for rest to be done. So but once installation is done, the next task is to configure this AWS CLI with our AWS user that we have created in AWS account, so that we can access our AWS account from this EC2 instance, from this kops server using, sorry, this is not kops server, this is just a kops. From kops machine we can access that AWS account. So let's give AWS configure. So it's asking AWS access key ID. So we have downloaded it. If you remember, here is that. This is our AWS access key ID. Let me copy this and paste it here. Now it's asking AWS secret access key. Again, let me copy this and paste it here. So now default region name, it's US. Let's confirm one more time. It's US West 2. Okay, US West. US West. Yeah, correct. Then default output format, I'll go with the JSON. And that's it. Configuration is successfully done. So now what's left? Let's install one by one. So before that, let's see the status. So SSH keygen AWS CLI installation is done. Configuration is also done. Now kubectl and kops are left. For the kubectl, let's get into our documentation. Yeah, install and set up kubectl on Linux. Install kubectl binary with curl on Linux. So we have to download. This is common. This is only for Linux. You can use it, or you can just directly come here. Debian based distributions. This is a specific way of doing. But what we are going to do is we will use this directly. Curl. in spite of using packages, we will use the kernel. This is far better. Download the latest release with the command. So we'll use this. Yeah. So get back and paste it here. kubectl AMD64 bin Linux, absolutely fine, stable version. Yeah, that's okay. So now it's being fetched, it's done. Now what we have to do is we have to give permissions to execute this binary file for all the users. So that's the reason I'm going to give +x, and the name of this is kubectl. That's done. Then let's move this kubectl binary file. You can find out here. You see that the kubectl, this file, and if we do lslrt, you could see that for the kubectl we have given execute permission for all. All means all. For the owner, for the group members, and for others. Everybody can execute kubectl. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this kubectl file from root directory to the, that's a root user home directory, to the binary file, binary directory. So for that I'm putting to user, I'm going to put this into user local and then bin directory. That's it, it's been placed into the bin directory. You could see that no kubectl here. So now let's validate the installation of kubectl. For that I'm going to say kubectl help option. That's it. kubectl has been successfully installed, and you can see some of the commands. So all these commands we are going to use. Don't worry at all. Deploy commands, basic commands: create, expose, run, set, describe, delete, rollout, scale, everything we are going to see. So this is also done. Now install kops. It's time to install kops. Let me clear the screen first. To install kops, so again we'll get into our documentation, and this time I'll say install kops, installing Kubernetes with kops. Creating a cluster Linux. Yeah, so we'll go the Linux, not and at the end it's kops Linux AMD64. kops Linux AMD64, this is the correct version. So we are going to take this kernel. Of course you will have another ways of installing this using packages and all, but I would love to go with binary file. That's pretty easier than other ways. So Linux, because I don't this could be this can be used in any Linux distribution. So that's the reason I'm gonna do with this. So again let me do curl the binary file of kops AMD64, and let me do ls. Yes, here you should see kops Linux AMD64. kops Linux AMD64 binary file is absolutely visible. Now let me do lslrt and kops Linux AMD64. Nobody has execution rights, execution permissions, neither owner nor user, neither owner nor group members nor others. So now the first activity that we are going to do is chmod plus execute permission x and kops Linux AMD64 and execute. And let's cross check that. And here it is. Execute, execute, execute. User, owner, group member, and others all has the execute permissions. Now let's shift this file from root home directory, root user home directory to the binary directory. So kops Linux AMD 64 and /user local bin and kops. Oh, sorry, not kubectl, it's kops. So this is where I want to move into the kops directory, and let me execute this. I think it's successfully moved. Yeah, no file here. So now I'm gonna validate the installation of kops. For that, I would say kops and help option. That's it. It's successfully installed, and you can see the available commands of kops create. This we use to create the cluster, a Kubernetes cluster, and delete to delete the cluster, and we have update to update the cluster, and version. Let's give the version kops version, and here it is, the client version 1.25.3. and now let's mark this. So installation of kops is also successful. Now it's time to create a first ever Kubernetes cluster. But before we create a Kubernetes cluster, we will verify our domain also. Okay, we'll verify our domain whether it's been properly integrated with our AWS Route 53 hosted zone or not. That's what we're gonna do. Let's validate that. For that, I would say ns lookup, that is naming server lookup, and option is type. What type you have to look, that is ns naming servers. You look for naming servers, and it's a cube v pro, that's our hosted zone, that's what we have given, and imlaik.com. Correct? That's it. Here it is, server and cube non-authoritative answer, and you could find out that kubevipromlac.com has been connected, because this is mlac.com and this is naming servers. Properly it's been connected. Okay, so we are able to find out the information about this. So we have verified our domain. So this has shown all the 4 naming servers which are running in Route 53 hosted zone. Okay, so now it's time to create our Kubernetes cluster. So let me clear the screen. It's a very big command. So kops create and cluster. Now name of the cluster equal to cube vpro dot domain. Cube vpro is subdomain and main domain is imlaik.com. And state, where did we put the state? State is S3 bucket. Let's get into that and we'll copy that. Connect to EC2 instance, and let me click on S3 bucket service. Let's bring it up. So yeah, I have this S3 bucket, and let me click on this S3 bucket, and if you want to upload or download anything, you can get it. And the properties and US West, absolutely fine. And this is what we want. It's a V profile, S3 V profile, cop state. Okay, let's copy this. Let me click on access point. Yeah, it's fine. The rest all it's okay. Yeah, state equal to, we are using S3 bucket, and name of the bucket is this. I'll paste it here. Done. Then Jones US West. So I will go with US West. Okay, but before, let me cross check what all that US West has. EC2 instance and global view. Yeah, we are in. Let me come down. US West, US West, US West, US East, US East. 1, 2, yeah, European Union, US West 2. Let me click on this. It has US West subgroups. So I'll use this Oregon. Yeah, here you should find zone name. You have US West 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. Total we have 4. So I'm gonna use just US West 2A and 2B. That's more than enough. So US West 2A, comma US West 2B. That's it. And after that node, then we have a node count. How many nodes you want to have, that you have to mention. So node count. So I'm gonna have node count of 2. I will create a 2. Okay, 2 nodes. Kops is our main node, and remaining 2 nodes are our working nodes. Okay, 2 nodes. And size of the node size, that's a T3 medium, or T3 small is also absolutely fine, but that's okay. T3 medium. Then DNS zone, this is very important. DNS zone, it's a DNS zone we have written. Let me copy that from here, or it's whatever from, yeah, this is S3 bucket. Yeah, this is our DNS zone. Cube vpro imlight.com. Yeah, it's I'll paste it. DNS zone name. Done. Then node volume size. What's the volume you want to provide for your working nodes? Node volume size equals to 8 GB. Then master volume size, it's a master for a master node. So master node volume size, I'm gonna give, how much would be better? Just let me think. I think for master volume size, it would be 8 would be fine. It's okay. 8, 16 also okay, but 8 would also be okay. That's it. So now we have to enter and see what's gonna happen. So if you go through the output, it's been printing on the screen. Okay, finally configure your cluster with kops update cluster name. Okay, so it's been the template has been created. Now we have to update this, and then we have to validate that. So once the validation is done, so we could C. So we have to update the cluster. So now you could see that the cluster configuration has been created. That means a template has been created. Now suggestions, list clusters with kops get cluster. I did this cluster, that's okay. And then edit your node instance. And so now finally configure your cluster with kops update cluster and the name S and admin. Of course, we have to provide the S3 bucket also. That's very important. Providing the node, uh, without providing the S3 bucket information, you cannot store the state of the object. So that is the reason we have to provide. So now the template has been created. Now we need to update it, and then finally when we say validate, everything will be created. So now let's update the template. So kops update cluster name option. So it's a cube Wipro. It's on top. Let me copy this and paste it here. Then after that, we have to attach the state, that is S3 bucket. State, we are using S3 bucket, and it's a V. Where is that? Okay, I might have. Yeah, here it is. I copied some. Yeah, V profile Charan cop state. Correct? Exactly. So let me paste it here. Done. And let us say yes and admin. And let's execute. So cluster is gonna start issuing new certificate etcd peers CA events. If you remember the etcd, we have discussed about the etcd and what it does. So now here you can see clearly on the screen what the etcd is doing. Okay, cluster is starting. Now it should be ready in a few minutes. So suggestions from kops validate cluster. So kops validate cluster, wait 10 minutes. And list nodes, kubectl get nodes. If you use these commands, you can do this kind of task. That's what the suggestions are doing. So now it's we have to wait for 15, at least 10 to 15 minutes to for the setup to happen. Okay, after 10 to 15 minutes we're gonna do kops validate the cluster. So then our, let's wait for few more minutes and we'll get back to this. Yeah, now let's validate the cluster. So for that I am gonna say kops validate and cluster state, again S3 bucket, sorry, S3 bucket, and the name of that is, I'll just copy it exactly. I don't want to make any mistake, so I'll just copy and paste it. Yeah, that's it. Let's execute and see what's gonna happen. So using cluster from kubectl context, that's a kubewipro.mlac.com. That's our route 53 hosted zone. So validating cluster kubewipro.mlac.com, and here you could see master node, US node, a master node, and a working node, and a working node. So all are of T3 medium, and US West 2A, 2A, 2B, all has been the node status master node working node. One master node and 2 working nodes have been created successfully. Your cluster kubewipro.imlike.com is up and running. It's ready for it's ready to serve you. So now let's validate and look at Kubernetes cluster from kubectl, and we'll see what's going to happen. But before that, let's mark these things. Okay, all done, all done, absolutely all done. Now, so let's validate this Kubernetes cluster from kubectl using kubectl. So let's do ls, and we have these files because we are in root home directory or root user home directory. So I am gonna say cat, and I will give the absolute path tilde forward slash dot, and it's a cube, and then inside that you will find the config file. So this config file is very important. This is called a kube config file, a Kubernetes config file, and this consists of a lot of information. But for us, a few parameters are very much important. So this is the file which is mainly for the kubectl, but this file is used by kubectl to connect to the cluster. If you want to connect to the cluster from external instances or external server, even from your local machine, still you can do it, but you need to have this config file in your local machine. So that's why this is very important. That's a config file of kube. Okay, let's look into that one more time. Yeah, it starts here, and here it's mentioning the clusters. The first cluster, the certificate has been given certificate authority data. Inside that you can see that the name that we have mentioned, the kubewipro.imlike.com, absolutely this is ours. And the domain that we have used, if you remember, http, this is the complete URL of our server, and API, this is still that it's API, and after that kubewipro is subdomain, and imlike.com is our main domain. And contexts, we have a cluster with this name, and user with this name, and name also with that name. And here you can see the usernames. You can attach more users if you want. So client, here they have given the client certificate data. That's all about this kube config file for now. So we are going to delve into this kube config file later, but for now this is more than enough. Then this is mainly used to connect to the cluster, the kubectl. If kubectl should connect to the cluster, that is only possible through this. And now let's give one more command. So kubectl get nodes. This is the first ever command that we are giving in this course. Till now we haven't typed any kubectl commands, and first time ever we are typing our command. So we have to celebrate this moment. Cheers for you and me and everybody who is following this course. Okay, I'm executing a first command in this kubectl get nodes. Cheers, guys. Yes, that's it. And this is the response. So total, how many nodes are running? 3 nodes. One is control plane, other one is node. These are two are working nodes, and this is a master node. This is a control plane. The cluster, we have created a cluster with one control plane and two working nodes, and age 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes. Just recently we have created this. So now the next step, so we have done enough of validation inside our so validations of kubectl config file, and then kubectl command. Now we will done. So now we will validate directly in AWS console. Validate the cluster in AWS console. Okay. So let's get into the AWS console and Oregon. Let me click on EC2 instances. Okay, it's dashboard. Let me scroll up. We are in EC2 instances only, and let me refresh it. Here is the magic. Here is the magic. Kops that we have created and remaining three. Let me make it. Yeah, fine. Node, master node, node. So master node is this and working node these two. So all three instances have been successfully created by kops. So big congratulations to everybody, whoever is following and whoever is able to do this till now or thus far. So one more thing you should able to see here. So let me get it back. Let me get back to that. Yeah, here resources, auto scaling groups. Now you should see auto scaling groups also. In addition to instances, what is this? So now this is created by auto scaling group. Whatever these three instances were created, those were created. It's not out of. It's not magical. It's a proper systematically happen things. So that was done by auto scaling groups. So if you come to auto scaling groups, you should see three auto scaling groups. Absolutely, you see that? So one for master. Let me make it. Yeah, this is master, master US West 2A, and other two for working nodes are workers. Okay, that's how. And this one is created by the AWS itself. Okay, so auto scaling group. So this step is also done. Now let's look into an VPC which was created by kops. So let me note down this. So these two are done. So next validation that we are gonna do is eighth one, that is looking into an VPC which was created by kops. Let's get into that. So I will type VPC, a virtual private cloud. I have clicked it on. Yeah. So now I'll click on your VPC. And here it is. Our VPC, that's a kubewipro.com. So we have created a virtual private cloud, and here you can find all the information. DHCP option set you can find out here, and here you could find out CIDR. We have discussed about all this terminology in networking module. If you haven't watched it, kindly you go there and watch it and come back here, because you will have a lot of fun there. So this is our CIDR. This is for IP version 6, and here you could see IP version 4 CIDR. We have clearly explained about this CIDR there. Kindly watch there. So main route table also you can see, and network ACL and all the information that we can see here. So now let's go to the route 53 zone, and we will validate that also. But let me mark this. So this is also done. Now validating route 53 zone. Yes, here you could see DNS management. You have one hosted zone. Let me click on that one hosted zone. Yes, it is. Here it is. That's kubewipro.com. This is our hosted zone, which is public. It's a route 53 record count 5. Let me click on kubewipro.com, and you could see the complete information about that. Of course, we have seen this before, but Few more important things you might have seen on this. Those are all three. Let me make it bigger, and here it is. See, we got three more servers which are included in Route 53. One is API QViproImlac.com. So Route 53 in your hosted zone, you will see new records that are created API cube vipro.imlac.com. In this points to the master node IP. So then you have an internal that points to the master node private IP. This is the internal. It points to the master node, whereas this one API which points to the master node, whereas internal which points to the master node private IP. Okay, API master node, this is also master node, but this points to the private IP. You can see that here. You can see that 172 private IP and the top one is public IP. This is basically our API server. Inside one component, that's an API server. And here you could see the kops controller. This is not important for us because this is out of basically cluster. This is what our cluster. This is private, and this api.qviproimlac.com, this is a public one. So now enough of validations. Now let's delete cluster. Let me get back to our server. Let me clear the screen. Okay, go on. Clear the screen. Yeah. So now let's delete the cluster. So how can you delete that? I would say kops help, and to delete, this is to update a cluster, this is to upgrade a Kubernetes cluster, validate we have used, version we have used, export completion is here, it is create a resource by command line, and this is to delete clusters, instance groups, instances and secrets. Okay, so let's delete this. I'll say kops and delete cluster, and name of the cluster equals to, we know that it's a cube vipro dot domain, that's imlac.com, and state S3 bucket. That's what it's storing the state of our objects or of clusters. So that's let me copy this directly. Yeah, here it is. Yep, so that's it. Now let me say S and done. Error reading cluster information cluster.kops.k8s. Oh, that's it. So that's the that's the issue when you type names of the cluster or S3 bucket. See, I missed out a 0 O there, so it could not find that. So now it's gonna delete the cluster. It's deleting that. Not all resources deleted, waiting before reattempting the deletion. That's okay. Volumes, DHCP options, route tables, subnets, completely virtual private cloud is going to be wiped off, and internet gateway. And let's wait for a few more minutes. Volumes are getting deleted. That's okay. So it's going to delete all of them, and it takes some time. Once the cluster is deleted, it's going to give give us back our shell. And never ever do not try to delete this cluster manually, like when we were kids, when we were watching WWE. So that time they used to say, do not try this. So I am also saying, do not try to delete this cluster manually, because it's lot. There are a lot of things are there. So if you really want to do it manually, then you have to start from auto scaling groups. First you have to delete auto scaling group, then you have to delete one by one all the services that we have used. Okay, that's it. Deleted kubectl config for kubeviproimlac.com. This is our cluster name. So the cluster has been deleted successfully. Now let's rerun the cluster. I'm just playing around. Okay, now let's rerun the cluster. So to rerun the cluster, now if we want to create it once again, it's just two commands, just two commands. So but most important aspect is the most important thing is, you should not remove your prerequisites. That means I'll show you that all those things should not be removed at all, like S3 bucket, IAM user, route 53 hosted zone. These things you should not touch it. If they're intact, that means you can recreate our cluster with two commands. Okay, the first command is kops. Let's give the command directly, or I'll just volume is 8 and master volume is 8. Absolutely fine. Let me create this. Now the template is going to be created. Then we have to update the changes. We have to update it and we have to validate it. So that's it. Okay, error reading. What's the issue? Okay, S3 bucket, na? The issue is with S3 bucket. Okay, let me copy that. Let me check the S3 bucket. Okay, cops, maybe cop, some spelling mistake. V profile cop states. Okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. The issue is here. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just paste it. State again. That's also one more issue. Yep. That's it. CIDR. Let's wait for that. Finally, configure your cluster with kops update cluster. So let's update that. Kops update cluster and name, it's a cube vpro dot imlac Okay, we'll keep this one and we will do the changes till state will it remains same. Then adds a yes and admin. So rest all fine. So this is also okay. So here I'm gonna say kops update. Yeah, so the template is being updated, and finally we to validate, then our cluster will be up and running. But before, yeah, so that's it. The cluster, it should be, the cluster is starting now. The cluster is starting. Now after a few minutes it should be ready, so we have to say validate. So validate is nothing but we are just cross checking whether the cluster is started or not. So first one, when we say kops create, it will just create a template. It will make sure everything is done, all are available. And once we say kops update, then it's gonna do actual action, it's gonna create those things. And when we say validate, and it's all done, it's cross checking, it's validation. So now let me say kops validate and cluster, and here name is not required. Let me give the state, that's s3. V profile Charan and kops state. That's it. Let's see. I think it will take some time. Okay. Okay, it's taking some time. Let's wait. Cluster not at healthy. We have to wait for a few more seconds, a few more minutes maybe. That's it. Our cluster cube wipro.imlac.com is up and running. Let's validate it one more time. So EC2 instance, and here it is. We are in Tokyo. Let's go to the Oregon. That's US West 2, and you should see instances running, and we will go for all instances all. That's it. See, 3 instances were terminated because we have deleted the cluster. So those initial 3 were terminated, and now again master and then working notes again has been started back, and you can see the complete information about that. Okay, I think it's pretty clear for you. So we have seen enough. Now what we're gonna do is, if you want to if you want to continue with this with the next tutorial, you can simply leave this cluster up and running, or else you can delete this cluster saying cube saying kops delete command. Okay, but I hope you will follow me for the next session. So keep that cluster up and running. We will see you in another tutorial, that too specifically on Kubernetes objects and config files.